a $200,000 salary used to mean security. Today, it often produces the same psychological state as financial scarcity, just hidden behind better furniture. The number itself has not lost meaning. The environment around the number has changed faster than the number can compensate for, and the gap between those two rates of change is where the distortion begins. $200,000 in a high-cost metropolitan area is consumed before it is received. Housing, taxes, childcare, transport, insurance, and debt servicing absorb the salary in a sequence the earner does not control. What remains after fixed obligations is often a margin so narrow it behaves like the margin of someone earning far less. The difference is that the obligations are larger, more rigid, and harder to reverse. This is the first asymmetry. A high salary does not produce high disposable income when the cost structure attached to that salary scales with it. The earner is not poor in the conventional sense. The earner is operating inside a financial structure where every increase in income has been pre-matched by an increase in commitment, often before the income itself has stabilized. Mortgages sized to the salary, schools chosen to match the neighborhood, cars financed against future earnings, and lifestyle obligations that cannot be unwound without social and professional consequences. Each of these decisions was rational at the moment it was made. Together they produce a system in which the salary is no longer flexible, even though it is large. This is where the resemblance to poverty begins. Not in the absolute number, but in the absence of optionality, which is the quality that actually distinguishes financial freedom from financial performance. A person earning $30,000 has few choices because the income is small. A person earning $200,000 can have few choices because the income is fully allocated. And allocation, not size, is what removes flexibility. In both cases, the experience is the same. The money arrives, the money leaves, and the individual has no leverage over the timing or direction of either. Optionality is the real currency of financial security. When optionality is gone, the income figure becomes a label rather than a resource, and labels do not pay for anything. The high earner cannot pause. The fixed costs continue regardless of motivation, health, or circumstance, and the structure does not adjust itself to accommodate the human inside it. A missed month does not produce inconvenience. It produces structural failure because the obligations were calibrated to uninterrupted income and assume the earner will remain functional indefinitely. This is the second asymmetry. The higher the salary, the more fragile the system that depends on it, because the system was built assuming the salary would never stop. The earner becomes the load-bearing element of a structure they did not consciously design. The structure was assembled gradually, one reasonable decision at a time, until the entire arrangement required the earner to remain exactly where they are. This is why the $200,000 salary so often behaves like poverty. The defining feature of poverty is not low income. It is the inability to stop, redirect, or refuse. When a high earner cannot stop, cannot redirect, and cannot refuse, the psychological state converges with the state of someone earning a fraction of the amount. The mechanisms differ, but the constraint is identical, and constraint is what the nervous system actually responds to. This is not a moral observation. It is a structural one, and the structure operates the same way regardless of who is inside it. The system does not care what the income is. It only responds to whether the income is committed, and committed income behaves the same whether the figure is small or large. A salary that is fully committed is, functionally, a salary that does not belong to the person earning it. It belongs to the obligations attached to it, and the earner is simply the mechanism through which those obligations are paid. The earner is the conduit. The money passes through them on its way to predetermined destinations, and the brief moment it appears in their account is mistaken for ownership. This is the third asymmetry. Income visibility creates the impression of wealth, while income allocation determines the reality of it. Outsiders see the salary. The earner experiences the residue, and the two perceptions are almost never reconciled in conversation. The gap between these two perceptions is where the confusion lives. It is also why high earners rarely describe themselves as wealthy, even when the figure suggests they should. They are not lying. They are reporting the experience of a salary that has already been spent before it is paid, and that experience does not match the number on the contract. The structural truth is that wealth is not a number. Wealth is the distance between income and obligation, and that distance is what determines whether a salary feels like security or pressure. When that distance is zero, the income is irrelevant to the lived experience. When that distance is negative, the income is a liability disguised as an achievement. $200,000 in many modern environments produces a distance of zero. Sometimes less, and almost never as much as the figure implies to those observing from outside. This is why the salary behaves like poverty. Not because the number is small, but because the number has been absorbed by a structure that leaves nothing behind. The earner is solvent on paper and constrained in practice. The constraint is invisible to everyone except the person inside it, and even they often misread it as a personal failing rather than a structural one. And the structure, once built, is extremely difficult to dismantle. Each obligation reinforces the others, and removing any one of them threatens the stability of the rest. This is the final asymmetry. The salary that was supposed to provide freedom becomes the mechanism that prevents it. Want to see the hidden rules shaping money, power, and human behavior? Subscribe to Unseen Forces.